A scorching afternoon in Boston. On a busy street near Beacon Hill, the glossy black Mercedes of Graham Ashford rolled slowly through the flow of traffic. Inside the car, the 38-year-old man, a millionaire known throughout the city, was completely lost in a storm of tangled thoughts. The message Vivian had just sent still echoed in his mind. She said she was pregnant. "I'm about to become a father," Graham thought. But strangely, instead of the joy he had always imagined, an invisible weight pressed tightly against his chest. His heart felt heavy, as if something was wrong, even though he couldn't quite put a name to it. At that exact moment, under the blazing afternoon sun, a small girl suddenly darted across the sidewalk directly in front of the car. Tears streamed down her cheeks. In her hands, she clutched a hastily folded piece of paper and a few loose coins, gripped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. And then, as the sunlight struck just right, a faint glimmer flashed before Graham's eyes. Around the girl's neck was a gold necklace. Graham's heart seemed to stutter in that instant. "Stop the car!" he blurted out, his voice so urgent he didn't even recognize it himself. The driver, Owen Hartley, jolted and slammed on the brakes. "Sir, what's going on?" But Graham didn't wait to hear the rest. He flung open the car door, stepped into the street, and almost ran after the girl. "Hey, sweetheart, wait a second," he called, forcing his voice to stay gentle. The girl slowed and turned her head. Her wide eyes, soaked with tears, looked up at the unfamiliar man standing in front of her, breathing hard. And in that very moment, Graham saw it clearly. The gold necklace around her neck. The familiar letters are delicately engraved on the pendant. G. Ashford. The world seemed to collapse beneath his feet. It was his family heirloom. The necklace he had lost 5 years ago. The necklace he had searched for in vain for so long, before finally being forced to accept that it was gone forever. Graham's voice trembled, barely sounding like his own. "Where did you get that necklace?" The girl immediately stepped back, clutching the necklace tightly to her chest, as if afraid someone might steal it from her. "Don't touch it," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "This is my dad's necklace." Graham froze. Your dad?" he whispered, his throat dry and burning. And in that very moment, everything began to spiral out of control. If you've followed the story this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what comes next. Because from this moment on, Graham's life will never be the same again. How did that family heirloom end up in the girl's hands? And the woman behind the words, "My dad"? Who is she, really? 5 years earlier, Eliza Merrick, 24 years old, lived in a tiny room measuring just 25 square meters in the South End, together with her best friend, Samantha Caldwell. The small space held an old double bed, a single electric burner pressed against the wall, and a wooden wardrobe whose paint had peeled away with time. That was everything they owned, and also their only shelter in a vast but unforgiving city. Every morning, Eliza opened her paper-thin wallet and carefully counted each coin. Rent, utilities, food. Everything had to be calculated down to the smallest detail. On some days, she ate only one meal, saving the rest of her money for bus fare to interviews scattered across the city. Even so, Eliza never lost faith. "One day, my story will change," she often told Sam, as if making a promise to herself. Sam, the red-haired girl with a strong personality, worked the night shift at a cafe in downtown Crossing. Eliza, meanwhile, took on every odd job she could find to survive. They leaned on each other to get through each day, sharing dry pieces of bread, tears of exhaustion, and the rare bursts of laughter that reminded them they hadn't fallen yet. One September morning, As Eliza was getting ready to leave the room, her phone suddenly vibrated. On the other end was the Roland Hotel, a four-star hotel located above the Harbor Pulse Club in the Seaport District. They wanted to invite her in for an interview for a housekeeping position. "Eliza, this is your chance," Sam shouted, throwing her arms around her friend as if it were already a victory. The next morning, Eliza arrived at the Roland at exactly 9 o'clock. The interview with Mr. Darren Whitmore was gentler than she had expected. There was something deeply genuine in the young woman's eyes, the persistence, the sincerity, and the carefully hidden exhaustion that made him nod after a few moments of silence. "Congratulations, Miss Merrick," he said. "You're hired." Eliza stepped out of the hotel with eyes red from tears, her heart pounding so hard that her hands trembled as she called Sam. "I got it. I got the job." That evening, in their familiar little room, Sam cooked a pot of spaghetti to celebrate. They sat close together on the old bed, eating and laughing, as if all their hardships had finally been left behind. "You deserve this," Sam said with absolute confidence. "From now on, life is going to get better." But Sam had no idea that, just a few days later, a decision that seemed harmless at the time would completely change Eliza's life. That Saturday, Sam insisted they go out to celebrate. "Let's go to Harbor Pulse," she said excitedly. "You deserve to have a little fun." Eliza shook her head, clearly hesitant. "I don't really like places like that." "Just one night," Sam pleaded, her eyes full of hope. "Just one night, okay?" In the end, Eliza gave in. They put on the nicest dresses they owned. Eliza chose a simple, modest black dress, while Sam wore a striking red one that stood out in the crowd. Harbor Pulse was packed. The music pounded against their chests, LED lights flashing endlessly in every color imaginable. To Eliza, it was a completely foreign world, a world of people with money, with time to waste, and with no need to worry about tomorrow. Sam pulled Eliza into the flow of people. They danced and laughed. But Eliza didn't realize that about an hour earlier, she had taken a strong headache pill. By nearly 11 p.m., the medication and alcohol began to interact. Her head spun, her legs turning soft like cotton. "Sam, I need to lie down," Eliza whispered, clinging to her friend's hand. "I'm so dizzy." "Do you want to go home?" Sam asked, worried. "No, I just need to lie down for a bit." Eliza staggered up toward the hotel area of the Roland, located directly above the club. The long hallway blurred before her eyes, as if drifting. A room door stood slightly ajar. Inside, it was pitch dark, unnaturally quiet. Eliza stepped inside, saw the large bed ahead, and collapsed onto it. Sleep swept her away like a violent wave. She had no idea whose private room it was. At the same time, Graham Ashford, the 33-year-old CEO of Ashford Enterprises, was sitting alone in his black Mercedes by the Charles River. He was one of Boston's most successful young entrepreneurs. Money, power, reputation, striking good looks. Graham had it all. But tonight, none of it mattered. Calvin Sloan, his closest friend since college, a business partner Graham had trusted for 8 years, had just vanished with $8 million. Fake contracts, forged signatures. When the truth came out that morning, Graham felt as if a knife had been driven straight into his back. 8 years. I trusted him like a brother, he muttered, his voice hoarse with bitterness. Graham drained a bottle of whiskey and then called his assistant. "Get me a room at the Roland," he said tiredly. "I need a place to be alone tonight." Owen Hartley came to pick him up. When they arrived at Harbor Pulse, Graham ordered several more shots of hard liquor, trying to drown the pain gnawing at him, but the alcohol only left him more drained. Owen and the security staff had to support Graham up to a private room at the Roland. They laid him on the bed, turned off the lights, and quietly left. About half an hour later, Graham woke in a hazy state. He saw the silhouette of someone lying beside him. In his drunken blur, he assumed it was someone his assistant had arranged, one of the ways he had used before to forget the pain. Graham said nothing. Eliza didn't move either. She was deeply unconscious. And that night, amid confusion, pain, and helplessness, two destinies touched each other in the most tragic way. The next morning, Eliza woke as sunlight slipped through the curtains. Her head throbbed. It took a few seconds for her to realize where she was. The luxurious room, the large bed. An unfamiliar scent fills the air. Then it hit her. Eliza jolted upright, her heart racing. She looked around, clothes scattered everywhere. Fragmented memories rushed back. She had been drunk, gone upstairs, then fallen asleep. But now, what did that mean? "Oh my God," Eliza whispered, her hands trembling. What happened? The man, whatever he was gone. The room was empty. Tears welled up. Eliza felt as if the entire world had collapsed beneath her feet. She didn't know who he was. She couldn't remember his face. She wasn't even sure what had truly happened that night. Then her gaze stopped on something glinting on the pillow. A gold necklace, thick and heavy, with the letter A engraved on it. Eliza picked it up, her hands shaking. Something inside her told her she had to keep it. This is his?" she whispered. Beside it, on the small table, was a stack of cash, about $500. No note, no explanation. Holding the money, a wave of humiliation rose in Eliza's throat. She felt as if she had become someone she had never imagined herself to be. Tears fell onto the cold bills. She stuffed the money and the necklace into her bag, hurriedly got dressed, and rushed out of the hotel as if someone were chasing her. When Eliza returned to the room, Sam jumped up immediately. "Where have you been? You disappeared since last night." But Eliza didn't say a word. She simply stepped forward, collapsed into Sam's arms, and sobbed uncontrollably, like a child who had lost her entire world. 1 month passed. Eliza tried to bury that fateful night in the deepest corner of her memory. She threw herself into her work at the Roland Hotel, cleaning rooms, changing bed linens, bowing politely to guests with a courteous smile as if nothing had ever happened. But some things cannot be forgotten, no matter how hard one tries. The signs began to appear. In the mornings, Eliza felt nauseous. Her body was strangely exhausted, as if all her energy had been drained away. Sam noticed the change. "Do you feel different lately?" Sam asked, her voice full of concern. "You don't look well at all." Eliza shook her head, trying to appear calm. "I'm just tired." But deep down, Eliza knew something was wrong. Eventually, she walked into a free clinic in Roxbury, a place for people without health insurance. Eliza sat waiting, her hands tightly clasped together, her heart pounding. When the nurse returned, the gentle smile on her face sent a chill down Eliza's spine. "Congratulations, Miss Merrick," the nurse said. "You're pregnant, about 5 weeks along." Eliza's world collapsed in that very instant. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling so badly she could barely hear herself. On the way home, Eliza walked like someone sleepwalking. Yellow leaves drifted down onto the sidewalk. People continued to move busily around her. But to Eliza, everything had become blurred and distant, like a painting drained of all its color. "I'm pregnant with the child of a man, whose name I don't even know." When Eliza got home, Sam wasn't there yet. Eliza sank down onto the floor, her back resting against the familiar old bed, and broke down in tears. She cried until her voice went hoarse, until her tears ran dry, but the pain in her heart did not ease. Eliza placed a hand on her stomach, still flat, but inside there was a life growing, a child, her child, and the child of an unknown man. "How can I possibly raise this child?" she whispered in despair. "I can barely support myself. I have no family. Just Sam." Questions crashed over her like a storm. An abortion? But Eliza had grown up in the church. She couldn't do that. Keep the baby? But how would she provide? And when the child grew up and asked about their father, what would she say? The door opened. Sam walked in with bags of food in her hands. "Eliza, I bought pizza so we can—" Sam stopped short when she saw Eliza sitting on the floor, her face streaked with tears. "Eliza!" Sam rushed over. "What happened?" Eliza looked up. Her eyes were red, her voice so small it nearly dissolved into the air. I'm pregnant, Sam." Sam's face drained of color. "What?" "I'm pregnant," Eliza repeated. 5 weeks. Sam dropped down beside her, staring in shock. "The man? That night?" Eliza nodded. Tears spilled over again. Sam said nothing more, only pulled Eliza into her arms. The two girls held each other tightly and cried together. "Eliza," Sam said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to say, but you're not alone. You have me. I'll stay with you, no matter what you decide." Eliza looked up, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to do at all." Sam squeezed her hand firmly. "Do you want to keep the baby?" Eliza was silent. Then she placed her hand on her stomach again, feeling the fragile yet undeniable connection. "This child has done nothing wrong," Eliza said softly. "They didn't choose to come into this world this way. If I abandon them, I'll never forgive myself." Sam nodded, her eyes resolute. "Then you'll keep the baby, and I'll help you. We'll get through this together." That night, Eliza lay still, staring up at the ceiling. The sound of car horns echoed from the street below. In her heart, a decision had taken shape. No matter how difficult the road ahead might be, she would give birth to this child and raise them. "My child," Eliza whispered into the darkness. "I don't know who your father is, but I promise I will love you with everything I have." 1 week later, Eliza knew she could no longer stay silent. Sam agreed. They couldn't just sit around and wait in hopelessness. "We have to go back to Harbor Pulse," Sam said firmly. "Someone there has to know something." That afternoon, the two young women stood in front of Harbor Pulse's glass-fronted building. The late-day sunlight reflected sharply off the glass. Inside, the club looked nothing like it had on that loud night. No music, no laughter, only the quiet cleaning crew silently mopping the floors. They approached the reception desk. Sam spoke first. "We need to ask about a guest who was here about a month ago." The receptionist frowned, his tone cautious. "I'm sorry. We're not allowed to disclose customer information." "We don't need a name," Eliza said softly, trying to stay calm. Do you remember who rented a room on the night of September 15th? The man shook his head. "There are dozens of guests every night. I can't remember everyone." Sam opened her handbag and took out the gold necklace. "The guest left this behind," she said. "We just want to return it." The receptionist took the necklace, examined it closely, then sighed. "This is real gold. It looks very expensive. But without a name or a specific face, there's nothing I can do." They continued asking others. A female cleaner named Deborah Keats paused to listen to their story, her eyes full of sympathy. "I understand who you're trying to find," she said quietly. "But every night, So many drunk guests are taken up to their rooms. I truly don't know who is who. Finally, they went to see Darren Whitmore. He sat in his office, arms crossed, looking at the two young women with visible displeasure. "Miss Merrick," he said coldly, "it's inappropriate for you to be questioning guests like this. If anyone complains, you could lose your job." "I'm sorry, sir," Eliza said, her voice trembling but resolute. "But this is very important to me." "I can't help," Darren replied curtly. "Customer information is confidential. I advise you to focus on your work." Stepping out of Harbor Pulse, Eliza and Sam stood silently on the sidewalk in the fading light of dusk. The autumn wind swept past, carrying a sharp chill. "No one knows," Eliza whispered, her voice nearly breaking. Sam turned to her and looked straight into her eyes. "Eliza, listen to me. Maybe we'll never find that man, but that doesn't mean you can't raise this child. You can still be a good mother. You can still give your child a decent life." Eliza nodded, though tears continued to fall quietly. She placed her hand on her belly, now slightly rounded, and whispered, as if making a promise. "My child, I don't know who your father is, but I will love you twice as much. I promise." 5 years passed. 5 years filled with hardship and tears, but also holding many tender moments Eliza had never imagined she would live to experience. Vera Merrick was now 4 years old. She had golden blonde hair, gray eyes just like her father's, though Eliza had no way of knowing that, and a radiant smile capable of melting any heart. To Eliza, Vera was more than just a daughter. She was the reason Eliza found the strength to keep standing every single day. Eliza no longer worked at the Roland. As her pregnancy grew heavier, she became constantly exhausted and dizzy, often dozing off while cleaning rooms. Then, one day, a guest found Eliza asleep on a bed and immediately reported her to Mr. Whitmore. "Miss Merrick," he said coldly, "I've received too many complaints. You fall asleep on the job, work slowly, and make repeated mistakes. I can't keep an employee who is no longer capable of working." "Please, please, give me another chance," Eliza pleaded, tears welling up. But Whitmore only shook his head. "I'm sorry. You're fired, effective immediately." Eliza collapsed onto a stone bench in front of the hotel and cried like a child. 6 months pregnant, no job, no money. Before her, the future looked like nothing but a thick black fog. But Eliza did not give up. Eventually, she found a job at Maple and Brick, a restaurant in Back Bay. The pay was lower, the work harder, but they were willing to hire a pregnant woman. Eliza did everything she could, waiting tables, washing dishes, and cleaning. Whatever needed to be done, she did it. Sam remained by her side. But when Vera turned 2, Sam met a good man, got married, and moved to Cambridge. Even from farther away, Sam still called often, visited when she could, and occasionally gave Eliza money. "You don't have to do this," Eliza said apologetically. "I want to," Sam smiled. "Vera is my niece too." Even so, most of the time, Eliza had to rely on herself. Every morning, she woke up at 5, prepared milk for Vera, dressed her, took her to a free daycare, then rushed off to work. In the evenings, exhausted when she returned home, she still pulled Vera into her arms and read her bedtime stories, even as her eyelids drooped with fatigue. There were nights when Eliza had only $20 left in her wallet and had to choose between buying milk for Vera or medicine for herself. She never hesitated. Her choice was always Vera. There were also nights when, after Vera had fallen asleep, Eliza sat by the window, gazing at Boston's high-rise buildings glittering with lights in the dark. Silently, she wondered, "Where are you now? The man who gave me Vera? What kind of life are you living?" Then Eliza would gently shake her head, pushing those futile thoughts away. That man didn't know about Vera, and even if he did, he probably wouldn't care. Eliza understood clearly. She could only depend on herself. One evening, when Vera was 4 years old, the little girl sat on the floor playing with her dolls, but her face looked unusually sad. "Vera, what's wrong?" Eliza asked softly, sitting down beside her. Vera looked up. Her gray eyes shimmered with tears. "Mom, why don't I have a dad?" Eliza's heart tightened. She knew this day would come, but when it finally did, she still wasn't ready. "Did the kids at school say something to you?" she asked. Jane said her dad bought her a new toy. Lily said her dad took her to the movies. And me. Vera's voice trembled, tears rolling down her rosy cheeks. "I don't have a dad. Mom, where is my dad?" Eliza pulled her tightly into her arms. "My love, I know this is hard to understand. It's not that I didn't want you to have a dad. It's just that circumstances didn't allow it." "Does my dad love me?" Vera asked in a tiny voice. The question pierced Eliza's heart like a blade. "My child," she said softly, "I believe that if your dad knew about you, he would love you very much. But he doesn't know about you." "Why doesn't he know?" "Because life is sometimes very complicated, sweetheart." Eliza opened an old drawer and took out the gold necklace, the only thing left from that fateful night 5 years ago. She knelt in front of her daughter and placed the necklace into Vera's small hand. "This belongs to your dad," Eliza said, her voice trembling. "This is the only thing I have from him. Now I'm giving it to you. Keep it, and remember, even though your dad isn't here, a part of him will always be with you." Vera looked at the necklace, her eyes lighting up. "This is my dad's?" "Yes." "Can I wear it?" Eliza smiled through her tears. "Of course, my love. But you have to promise to take very good care of it. Don't let anyone take it from you." Vera nodded solemnly. "I promise, Mom." Eliza gently placed the necklace around her daughter's neck. It was a little big for Vera's small frame, but the girl beamed brightly. "Now I have a part of my dad." That night, after Vera had fallen sound asleep, Eliza sat beside her bed, watching the gold necklace shimmer under the soft glow of the night lamp. And in her heart, a question quietly rose, one that had gone unanswered for 5 long years. If fate ever allows us to meet again, what would you think when you learn about Vera? While Eliza struggled to raise her child alone in a small room in the South End, on the other side of Boston, inside the Ashford mansion in Beacon Hill, Graham Ashford was living a completely different life. 5 years had passed since that fateful night. Graham had survived the crisis. He sued Calvin Sloan, recovered most of the stolen money, and rebuilt his company, stronger than ever. Now, at 38, Graham was one of the most powerful businessmen in Boston. His company launched real estate projects stretching from New York to Miami. He appeared on Forbes, was invited to elite social events, and was always the center of attention for countless women. Yet there was something strange. Graham had never truly felt happy. He had a girlfriend, Vivian Cross, 32 years old, a renowned fashion designer known for her seductive beauty and refined style. They had been dating for 3 years. In the eyes of outsiders, they were the perfect couple. Wealthy, successful, and perfectly matched in social status. But Graham knew the truth. He did not love Vivian. Not in the way a man should love the woman he is about to marry. One evening, Graham stood alone on the mansion's balcony, gazing down at the city glowing under countless lights. Edmund Ashford, his father, 68 years old, silver-haired and dignified, stepped out to stand beside his son. "My son," Edmund said slowly, I can see that you're unhappy. Graham turned, forcing a smile. I'm fine, Dad. Don't lie, Edmund replied. I raised you. I know when you're trying to hide something. Graham was silent for a moment, then sighed. I don't understand it myself. I have everything: money, a successful career, a beautiful woman. So why do I still feel empty? Edmund nodded, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. Do you know what the problem is? You don't have a real family yet. You need a wife, not a girlfriend to attend parties with, but a woman you can share your life with. You need children. That's what gives a man's life meaning. I've thought about marrying Vivian, Graham said slowly. But every time I'm about to propose, something stops me. What is it? Edmund asked. Graham shook his head. I don't know. It's just a very strange feeling, as if there's a missing piece in my life. Edmund looked at him with concern. Maybe you miss your mother. You were very close to her before she passed. Graham's mother had died when he was 25, after a battle with cancer. It was the greatest shock of his life. The woman who had loved and supported him unconditionally was gone, leaving behind a void no one could fill. Maybe, Graham whispered. But I believe you need to move forward, Edmund said. Marry Vivian. Have children. That may help you feel whole. Graham nodded. But deep inside, he was still unsure. The next evening, Vivian came to the mansion. She wore a form-fitting red dress, her hair styled in an elegant updo, diamond jewelry sparkling under the lights. Vivian looked flawless, like a queen stepping out of a magazine cover. Darling, Vivian embraced Graham and kissed him. I've missed you so much. Graham smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. I missed you too. They sat in the luxurious living room, sipping wine. Vivian talked about a fashion show in Milan, about wealthy clients, about orders worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Graham listened, nodded, but his mind drifted far away. Graham, Vivian said, her tone turning serious, have you thought about us getting married? Graham looked at her. I have. And? Vivian asked, her eyes expectant. And I think maybe we should. Vivian beamed, placing her hand over his. I'd love to be your wife, Graham. I think we're very well suited. Graham nodded, but deep down he felt none of the excitement a man should feel when deciding to marry the woman he loves. After Vivian left, Graham went up to his bedroom. He opened his closet, searching almost unconsciously. Then suddenly, he remembered the Ashford family gold necklace. The necklace his grandfather had passed down to his father, and his father had given to him. The necklace engraved with the letter A, the symbol of the Ashford lineage. Graham searched through the closet, through every drawer, but it was nowhere to be found. That's strange, he murmured. Where did I put it? He called Agnes Holloway, the 60-year-old housekeeper who had served the Ashford family for over 30 years. Agnes, have you seen my gold necklace? The one with the letter A? Agnes thought for a moment, then shook her head. No, sir. I haven't seen you wear it in a long time. Graham frowned. The last time I remember having it was, he tried to recall, 5 years ago. The night he went to Harbor Pulse. The night he drank himself into oblivion after Calvin's betrayal. After that, everything became blurred. Maybe I lost it somewhere, Graham sighed. It's fine. But inside him, a vague sadness rose. That necklace was more than gold. It was a family legacy, a bond between him and his ancestors. And now, it was gone. Graham had no idea that the necklace was resting on the neck of a 4-year-old girl, just a few streets away from his mansion, close in distance. Yet worlds apart, in class and destiny. One autumn afternoon that year, as golden leaves blanketed the streets of Boston, Eliza lay curled up on the small bed in her cramped room. Her forehead burned with fever, sweat soaking into her tangled hair. She had been running a high fever for 2 days, but there wasn't enough money in her wallet to see a doctor. Eliza could only afford a few cheap fever reducers, hoping they would be enough to help her get through it. Vera sat beside her, tiny hands gently stroking her mother's burning cheeks. "Mom, you're really sick, aren't you?" Eliza tried to smile, even though her lips were cracked and her throat felt raw. "I'm okay, sweetheart. I just need to rest a little." But the fever didn't ease. By late afternoon, Eliza knew for sure. She needed antibiotics, medication that required a doctor's prescription. She rummaged through her old wallet, counting each thin bill, $45. Enough to buy medicine, but it meant there would be no money left for food for the rest of the week. Eliza sighed, then called softly, "Vera, can you get the paper from the drawer for me? The one the doctor wrote last time." Vera obediently ran to fetch it. Eliza took the prescription, her hands trembling. "Good girl," she said softly. "Now run to the pharmacy at the end of the street, give this to the pharmacist, and buy the medicine for me, okay?" Vera nodded seriously. Though only 4 years old, she was already used to being independent, used to moments when her mother had to work or was too sick to get out of bed. "I'll run really fast. Wait for me, Mom." Eliza handed her the money and the prescription, then bent down and gently kissed her daughter's forehead. "Be careful. Don't talk to strangers. And remember to hold on to your necklace tightly. Don't let it get lost." Vera reached up and touched the gold necklace around her neck, the most precious thing she owned. "I'll keep it safe. I'm going now." She ran out of the old building, down the creaking wooden stairs, and into the sunlit street. The gold necklace glimmered against her small chest as Vera ran along the sidewalk. At the same time, Graham Ashford sat in his sleek black Mercedes, inching slowly through traffic in the South End. He had just finished a tense meeting with investors and was on his way back to the mansion. But Graham's mind was restless. For days now, Vivian had been constantly bringing up marriage. She had even begun discussing venues, wedding dresses, and guest lists. Yet every time Graham thought about proposing, an inexplicable, suffocating feeling closed in on him. "Are you all right, sir?" Owen Hartley asked from the driver's seat. "You look worried." Graham stared out the window. "I'm fine, Owen. Just thinking about a few things." Suddenly, a child ran across the street, crying as she ran. It was a small girl with blonde hair blowing wildly in the wind, wearing a worn pink shirt and scuffed sneakers. And around her neck, something glinted under the afternoon sun. Graham's heart slammed. "Stop the car!" he ordered abruptly. Owen startled. "Sir?" "I said stop the car, now!" The car screeched to a halt. Graham flung the door open and jumped out, drawing curious looks from passers-by. "Hey, little one, wait a second," he called out, running toward her. Vera turned around. Her large gray eyes, brimming with tears, looked up at the tall man approaching her. She was frightened, but she stood still. Graham dropped to his knees in front of Vera, breathing hard. And when he looked closely at her face, he froze. Those gray eyes, that nose, even the fleeting hint of a smile. Everything felt terrifyingly familiar. But what truly left Graham reeling was the necklace around her neck. The thick gold chain with the raised letter A, the very piece he had lost 5 years ago. What do you need, sir?" Vera asked softly, her voice still trembling. Graham pointed at the necklace, his voice unsteady. That necklace. Where did you get it?" Vera immediately stepped back, clutching the necklace tightly with both hands as if to protect it. "This belongs to my dad. I won't let you touch it." Felt as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown in Graham's face. Your dad's?" "Yes," Vera nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My mom said it's the only thing my dad left behind. I have to keep it safe." Graham's head spun. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "Vera. Vera Ashford Merrick." "Ashford," Graham whispered. "And what's your mother's name?" "Eliza. My mom's name is Eliza Merrick. She's very sick. I have to buy medicine for her," Vera sobbed. "But I'm really scared. I've never gone this far alone before." Eliza. The necklace. The name Ashford. All the pieces collided inside Graham's mind. "Where do you live?" he asked, his voice turning firm. Vera pointed toward a narrow street ahead. "Over there." Graham straightened up and turned to Owen. "Go to the nearest pharmacy. Buy all the medicine on this prescription." He took the slip of paper from Vera's hand. "But, sir, do it now." Owen nodded and hurried off. Graham bent down again to Vera, his voice softening. "Can you take me to your home? I want to meet your mom." Vera hesitated. "My mom says I shouldn't talk to strangers." "I understand," Graham said gently. "But I think I know your mom, and I want to help." There was something in the man's eyes that made Vera feel safe. She nodded slightly. "Okay, you can come with me." Eliza's room was on the third floor of an old building, where the paint peeled from the walls and the wooden stairs creaked with every step. Graham followed Vera, his chest heavy with tangled thoughts. Vera opened the door. "Mom, I'm back. I brought someone with me." Graham stepped into the small, roughly 20-square-meter room, the narrow bed, the old electric stove, the faded wooden wardrobe. He looked around, then saw Eliza. She lay on the bed, her face pale, hair damp with sweat, struggling to sit up when she saw a stranger. "Vera? Who did you bring home?" Eliza asked weakly, fear in her eyes. Graham stood frozen. That face, blurred in his memory, yet it stirred a sense of familiarity he couldn't explain. "Hello," he said softly. "My name is Graham Ashford. I met your daughter outside. She was crying. I couldn't let her go alone." Eliza tried to sit up. "Thank you, sir, but we're fine. You can go now." "No," Graham said, stepping closer. "You're not fine. You have a high fever. My assistant has gone to buy medicine. He'll be back shortly." Eliza looked at him suspiciously. "Why are you doing this?" Graham didn't answer. He looked down at Vera clinging to her mother, then at the necklace around the girl's neck. "That necklace," he said slowly. "Your daughter said it belongs to her father. Where did you get it?" Eliza froze. Her hands began to shake. I don't think I have to answer that." "Please," Graham pleaded. "That is my family necklace. I lost it 5 years ago." Tears streamed down Eliza's face. She could no longer hide the truth. "5 years ago," she began, her voice trembling, "I went to Harbor Pulse with a friend. I took headache medication and then drank. I went up to a hotel room to rest, and when I woke up the next morning, I found that necklace on the pillow." Graham listened, his entire body rigid. "The man had already left before I woke up," Eliza continued. "I didn't know who he was. I couldn't remember his face. A month later, I found out I was pregnant. I tried to find him, but no one knew anything. And then I decided to keep the baby and raise her on my own." Graham's legs went weak. He had to lean against the wall. "Could it be? That man was me?" Eliza choked back a sob. "I don't know. I truly don't know." Graham pulled out his phone and searched for an old photo. taken at Harbor Pulse 5 years earlier, with the necklace still around his neck. Is this one? Eliza looked at the photo, then nodded through tears. Yes, that's it. Graham collapsed onto the floor, burying his face in his hands. 5 years ago, my closest friend betrayed me. I drank too much. Someone took me up to a room to rest. I vaguely remember someone lying on the bed. But I thought it was someone my assistant arranged. I didn't know. I don't remember clearly. The room fell into silence. So, Eliza whispered. I'm Vera's father, Graham said, his voice breaking. I'm the one who let you suffer alone for 5 years. Just then, the door opened. Owen walked in with a bag of medicine. Sir, I've bought everything. Graham stood up and handed the bag to Eliza. Please take the medicine. And please, give me a chance to talk once you're feeling better. Eliza took the bag, tears still falling. Thank you, sir. No, Graham said hoarsely. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Thank you for keeping Vera. Thank you for raising my daughter. While I knew nothing at all, Graham did not leave that small room. He sat on the old wooden chair, the only chair in the room, quietly watching as Owen helped Eliza take antibiotics and fever-reducing medicine. Vera sat close to her mother, her large gray eyes observing the strange man with a child's wariness, yet also with a curiosity she couldn't quite hide. About an hour later, the medicine began to take effect. Eliza drifted off, exhausted. Graham pulled the blanket higher, covering her shoulders more fully, then turned to Vera. Vera, he called softly. The little girl looked up. Yes? Are you hungry? No, your dad will buy you something to eat. Vera hesitated, but her small stomach had been growling for a while. She gave a small, shy nod. I'm hungry. Graham signaled for Owen to go buy food. Then he sat down on the floor beside Vera. For the first time, he truly looked at his daughter, the child he hadn't even known existed until a few hours ago. Vera, Graham said, his voice softening. Do you know who I am? Vera shook her head. No. Graham hesitated. How could he tell a 4-year-old that he was her father? He took a deep breath, then chose his words carefully. I'm the person who left that necklace behind. Vera's eyes lit up instantly. So you're my dad? Graham froze. She was smarter than he expected. You think so? Vera nodded firmly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. My mom said this necklace belongs to my dad. Now you say it belongs to you, so you have to be my dad. She smiled brightly, a smile so pure it made Graham's heart twist. He had missed 4 years of this little girl's life. 4 years when he should have been there, feeding her, holding her, rocking her to sleep, hearing her laugh, hearing her cry. Yes, Graham said, his voice catching. No, I am your dad. Vera was quiet for a moment, then asked the question Graham knew would come sooner or later. Then why weren't you with me and Mom? The question struck him like a knife to the chest. Graham swallowed hard. Because I didn't know about you. If I had known, I would have come right away. I promise. Vera looked at him for a long time, her clear gray eyes seeming to stare straight into an adult's soul. Then she whispered, So now you know. Will you stay with me? Graham wrapped his arms tightly around his daughter, hot tears slipping down his cheeks. Yes, my love, I'll stay. I won't leave you any more. Owen returned with food, sandwiches, juice, and fruit. Vera ate eagerly, while Graham simply watched her, emotions rising inside him into something both sweet and painful, as if he were trying to make up for 4 years with his gaze alone. When Eliza woke later that evening, the first thing she saw was that Graham was still there. He sat on the floor, with Vera asleep soundly in his arms, her head resting lightly against the chest of a man who was unfamiliar, and yet, perhaps no longer unfamiliar. You're still here?" Eliza asked, her voice still weak but clearer now. Graham looked at her. "I can't leave. Not after knowing the truth." Eliza sat up slowly. "So you believe me? You believe Vera is your child?" "I only have to look into her eyes to know," Graham said. "Those eyes are exactly like mine. And the necklace, it's proof." Eliza nodded, tears rising again. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hide it. I truly didn't know how to find you." "No," Graham said. He carefully placed Vera onto the bed, as if afraid to wake her, then knelt in front of Eliza. "I'm the one who should apologize. I let you carry everything alone. 5 years. You raised Vera, loved her, worked yourself to exhaustion just to have enough to eat. And I lived in luxury without ever knowing I had a child." "You didn't know," Eliza said, her voice breaking. "That wasn't your fault." "But now I do," Graham replied, taking her hand. "And I want to make it right. Please let me take care of you and Vera. Come live with me." Eliza flinched, as if she couldn't believe what she'd heard. "What? No, that's not possible. We can't—" "Why not?" Graham asked. "Vera is my daughter, and you gave birth to her. I owe you far too much. Please give me a chance to be a father. Please come to my mansion. You and Vera will have everything you need. I'll take care of both of you." Eliza shook her head, worry plain on her face. "But you don't know anything about me. I'm just a poor woman. I don't belong in your world." "You raised my daughter," Graham said, his voice so serious it could not be dismissed as polite conversation. "That alone is enough for me to respect you. Please, don't refuse." Eliza looked down at Vera sleeping peacefully. She thought about this tiny room, about days without enough food, about a future wrapped in fog. Then she looked up at Graham, a man still unfamiliar, yet his eyes were too real, too urgent, as if he were afraid of losing the only chance he had to atone. "Okay," Eliza finally said, "but only temporarily, until I find a better place to live." Graham smiled. For the first time, it was a genuine smile. "Thank you, Eliza. I promise you won't regret it." That night, Graham carried Vera, asleep in his arms, while Owen supported the weak Eliza down the old staircase. The black Mercedes was waiting below. As she got into the car, Eliza glanced back at the small room, where she had lived, endured, and grown up in hardship for 5 years. And she heard herself silently ask, "What is happening to my life?" The car rolled through the streets of Boston, moving gradually from the struggling South End into the elegance of Beacon Hill, where warm golden lights washed over the old stone walls like a different world. When the car stopped in front of the Ashford mansion, Eliza stared with her mouth open. The 3-story building had classical architecture, a gold-plated iron fence surrounding it, and inside, a lush garden trimmed as neatly as the photos she had once believed belonged only to people living a different life. Franklin Yates, the gate security guard, opened the gate, his eyes clearly showing surprise when he saw his employer carrying a child, with a pale, skinny, unfamiliar woman behind him. Inside the mansion, Agnes Holloway, the housekeeper, was preparing to lock up when she saw Graham walk in. "Oh my, Mr. Graham!" she exclaimed. "This is—" "Agnes," Graham said decisively. "Prepare 2 bedrooms, one for Ms. Eliza, one for Vera. They'll be staying here from now on." Agnes looked at Eliza and Vera, clearly stunned, but she didn't ask anything further. 30 years of serving the Ashford family had taught her. There were matters best met with silence at the right time. Graham carried Vera upstairs and laid her down on a bed wide and soft as clouds. The first time in her life, Vera would sleep in a bed that truly felt like one. Then he led Eliza to the room next door. "This is your room," Graham said. "If you need anything, call Agnes. Get some rest. Tomorrow morning, we'll talk." Eliza nodded, still as if walking through a dream. When Graham left the room, she stepped to the edge of the bed and sat down. The mattress was so soft that she almost feared she would stain it with nothing more than her exhaustion and the old clothes on her body. And then Eliza cried. But this time, there were no longer tears of despair. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, and of a vague, lingering fear of a future so vast, so unfamiliar, so uncertain, waiting for her and Vera on the other side of tomorrow morning's door. 3 days after Eliza and Vera moved into the Ashford mansion, Graham quietly arranged everything to make the mother and daughter feel as comfortable as possible. He bought new clothes for Vera, dolls, picture books, and even small pairs of shoes that the little girl could stare at endlessly. He also hired a private doctor to examine Eliza, making sure she fully recovered after days of high fever. But there was one issue Graham still hadn't addressed, and he knew that sooner or later he would have to face it. Vivian. That morning, Graham was having breakfast with Vera. The little girl ate while excitedly telling him about her dream from the night before, that she had flown across the sky and owned a castle full of kittens. Graham smiled as he listened when his phone suddenly vibrating. Vivian's name appeared on the screen. "Darling," her familiar voice rang out, "I'll come by to see you this afternoon. I have good news I want to share with you." Graham's hand went cold. "Vivian, maybe now isn't a good time." "Why?" she asked immediately. "Is something wrong?" "We need to talk, but not over the phone." There was a brief silence. Then Vivian replied firmly, "I'll be there at 3 this afternoon. See you then." She hung up before Graham could object. Exactly at 3 o'clock, a bright red Porsche pulled up in front of the Ashford mansion gates. Vivian stepped out of the car wearing an elegant white suit, her softly curled hair falling over her shoulders, a delicately wrapped gift box in her hand. She smiled radiantly, as she always did. But that smile froze the moment she stepped into the living room. Eliza was standing by the window, the afternoon sunlight falling across her still pale face. Vera was sitting on the floor, deeply absorbed in playing with her dolls. "Who are they?" Vivian asked, her voice turning unmistakably cold. Graham stepped out of his study. "Vivian, we need to talk." "First," she cut him off, "you explain to me why there is a strange woman and a child in your house." The air in the room grew heavy. Eliza lowered her head, trying to avoid that sharp, icy gaze. But Vivian had already walked closer, looking Eliza up and down with undisguised contempt. "Did you hire a new maid?" Vivian asked sarcastically. "No," Graham replied immediately, his tone firm. "She's not a maid. She is my daughter's mother." Vivian froze. "What?" Graham pointed toward Vera. "Vera! She's my daughter. I only found out a few days ago." Vivian's face flushed red. "Your daughter?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Are you joking? You have a child with this woman?" She pointed straight at Eliza. "Don't speak like that," Graham said sternly. "Eliza deserves respect." "Respect?" Vivian scoffed. "You expect me to respect a woman who slept with you and gave birth to a bastard child?" Eliza felt as if she'd been slapped hard across the face. Tears surged, but she clenched her lips tightly, refusing to cry. "That's enough, Vivian," Graham shouted. "You do not get to speak that way about my daughter." But Vivian didn't stop. She marched straight toward Eliza, shoving her backward toward the door. "Get out of here! You don't belong in this place!" Eliza stepped back instinctively. Vera screamed and ran toward her mother. "Mom!" In the chaos, Vera tripped. She fell hard, her head striking the edge of a metal table. A piercing scream tore through the room. "Vera!" Eliza cried out, rushing to pull her daughter into her arms. Blood flowed from the little girl's forehead. Vera sobbed uncontrollably, trembling in her mother's embrace. Graham rushed over and lifted his daughter up. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" He spun toward Vivian, his eyes blazing red. "Look at what you've done!" "You hurt my daughter!" Vivian staggered back, her face drained of color. I didn't mean to—" "Get out of my house," Graham said, his voice icy and terrifying. "Right now." "Graham, you can't—" "Get out!" Vivian stared at him, trembling, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then she turned, tears spilling down her face, and ran out of the mansion. Graham carried Vera to the car and drove straight to the hospital himself. Eliza sat in the back seat, holding her daughter tightly, whispering over and over, "You'll be okay. I promise." At the hospital, the doctor stitched up Vera's wound. The little girl was very brave. She cried at first, then fell silent, one hand gripping her mother's tightly, the other holding on to Graham's. That evening, when they returned to the mansion, Graham carried Vera up to her bedroom. He laid her gently on the bed, sat beside her, and softly hummed a lullaby, something he had never done in his life. Eliza stood at the doorway, quietly watching the scene. Her heart tightened with emotion. For the first time in 5 years, Vera had a father. And for the first time, Eliza felt that she was no longer alone. And when Eliza carried Vera through the heavy iron gates of the Ashford mansion, she did not know that it was not only a doorway into a world of wealth, but also a door opening onto trials far more ruthless than the poverty she had left behind. Because not everyone in the Ashford family was ready to accept a poor woman, and a child born from a mistake. In the next episode, Eliza will face the contemptuous gaze of Boston's elite for the very first time. Graham will be forced into a choice that places him between responsibility and love. And a woman believed to have disappeared will return with a lie, powerful enough to shatter everything. If you don't want to miss the moment when the truth is finally exposed, click subscribe now. Part 2 will not be just about love. It will be the moment when masks begin to fall. Can a lie be called a child, force a man to give up his true happiness?